Swayze back in the 80s. Roadhouse Mullah drove the ladies all crazy as Johnny a dirty dancer macking on Baby. Now he's dead and gone, someone turn the page please. Mr. T-Face, Murdoch and the A-Team. Freddy Krueger made you scared to daydream. Cyndi Lauper looked like Rainbow Bright on crack. Time after time, true colours were the tight tracks. Marty went back to the future with Doc. Teen Wolf learned to dunk basketballs and box. Jay Fox was better than Jason Bateman and Scott. Nowadays he's got Parkinson's, poor bastard shakes a lot. 87 world champ, all black squad. Occupy the earth not as men but live in gods. It wasn't the fashion to celebrate tries. The jog nonchalant back to the halfway line. Against France Buck, got his testicle ripped out. Got it stitched up, went back on and got knocked out. Richard Hadley could bowl bulls out his ass. Winner of 1988's illest moustache. It wasn't an ice cream if the cone wasn't gay time. Parnell Panther held it down for the rape crime. Little Jeremy had AIDS, no one knew what to think. Kids called him AIDS face, he died and they felt stink. Michael Douglas made the share market thrilling. To wanna be good and geckos were jumping off buildings. Charles was in charge, Tony Danza was boss. We also had Springsteen, forget Rick Ross. Back then Georgie Pie was the takeaway spot, till McDonald's muscled in, dominating the block. Kentucky Fried Chicken was the choice of the hood rats. Herb's advert with the kid with the hubcap. Remember back in the 80s, back in the 80s. Jackson was still black back in the 80s. Stubby shorts with the shit back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, back in the 80s. Ferris had a day off back in the 80s. Couldn't be male and soft back in the 80s. Butter bullets with the shit back in the 80s. Remember back in the 80s, back in the 80s. Andre the Giant starred The Princess Bride. By 1993 his heart stopped and he died. Jesse Ventura turned himself into an actor. Jim Duggan yelled more hoes than a gangster. Rap along, he was anti-nuclear as a statesman. No nukes, the slogan bore political statement. David took on Jerry Falwell, the TV evangelist. Uranium breath line he kicked was a funny quip. The Rainbow Warrior was bombed by the French. They vehemently denied this cause we were friends, claiming that they didn't do it like that. French nationals arrested, Cat was out of the bag. Schwarzenegger with Commando, his vengeance was zeal. John Matrix favourite breakfast, Green Beret cereal. The Predator, the cyborg terminating in style. Now known as the governor, Latino love child. Mandela was set free from years in a jail cell. Became the prime minister, what a story to tell. Liberator and saviour all rolled into one. This year we farewelled a true South African son. The Springbok tour was swarmed in 81. Apartheid on our minds, knew what had to be done. Key led a delegation to Mandela's funeral. The protesters injured were left out as usual. Alcohol and smokes dominate sports sponsorship. KZ7 hit the cup, it was that quick. Pat and Demian ghosted the pottery slow dance. Ronnie and Gorby had an unlikely bromance. Bill Cosby wore the Technicolor sweater. Complete set of Garbage Gang, nothing was better. All these raps are an ode to remembrance. If you're from the 80s, you might remember this. Remember back in the 80s, back in the 80s. Jackson was still black back in the 80s. Stubby shorts with the shit back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, back in the 80s. Ferris had a day off back in the 80s. Couldn't be male and soft back in the 80s. Butter bullets with the shit back in the 80s. Remember back in the 80s, back in the 80s.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. 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 You could miss it.